All right, so let's bring in political analyst Dr. Dale McKinley to weigh in on some of these developments. Dr. McKinley, a very good afternoon to you, and thank you so much for your time. So as we get your reaction into this latest development, and when you consider, of course, what President Cyril Ramaphosa said earlier on in his statements on this matter, saying that people that are relocating to the US were not treated badly, in fact, in South Africa, and they were not, or they do not rather qualify to be called refugees. I mean, it does raise a lot of questions, including what specific criteria was then used to determine that this group of people meet the threshold for refugee status under US law. And why was the process expedited? I also had a conversation, of course, with our SABC correspondent, Nick Harper, saying that there will be a funfair when they land in the US.
Yeah, good afternoon, Inati, and thanks for having me. Listen, let's be very clear. This is a political decision on the basis of the Trump administration's view of South Africa. There is no empirical evidence to support any of the claims. First of all, race-based discrimination, which we, of course, know is not the case according to our own constitution and our rights. We have Afrikaner ministers. We have Afrikaners in high positions in the private sector. We have them all across society doing very well. The second one in relation to land seizures, this is also not empirically true. It's a lie, and everybody knows this. And even the AfriForum and others and the Afrikaners Farmers Association have said as much, that there's no seizure of land. And the third, the race-based discrimination, which is essentially affirmative action programs, have been implemented by the United States for the last 40 years. It's Donald Trump's war on this diversity, inclusion, and equity, DEI, which he's basically rolled out across the board, which explains why, and his embrace of a white nationalism. I think we must be very, very honest here. There's no objective basis for this, for granting these Afrikaners refugee status. The government is absolutely correct in this regard. And this is about Donald Trump's particular politics, his genuflection towards white nationalism, and his willingness to punish South Africa for its positions, particularly on Palestine, and its dominant multi-party democracy, which he does not like.
And I mean, many would also be agreeing with you, suggesting that this is politically motivated and, in fact, also undermines South Africa's constitutional, democracy. Especially because, Donald Trump has halted virtually all refugee admissions from, desperate people fleeing war zones. With that in mind, how does the likes of the recently appointed U.S. envoy, SABC Jonas, then navigate this muddy and uncertain terrain, just given the number of geopolitical moving parts, including, of course, the global stage that is the G20?
Yeah, it's a mess. I mean, Donald Trump's administration is one of those, as you mentioned, which basically is a transactional government. It basically makes decisions on the basis of what it thinks at that particular time is going to be good for its own constituents and itself. And there's no real consistency to what it is. So that makes the job of whether it's SABC Jonas or other envoys or even representatives, diplomats from other countries, particularly those that have been targeted by the United States as being so-called enemies or that we don't like what you're doing, to navigate this, because things can change at the drop of a hat. And I think where the probability of sort of, the focus should be is on the fact that the United States, and this was clear when Trump announced the tariffs on South Africa and our country. And then, of course, what he didn't announce was what was excluded, which is what the United States needs, which is critical minerals and a whole range of other things. So concentrate on the weaknesses of the United States. There's a lot of, how should we say, performance politics that is being sort of rolled out by Trump, and we react to it every time. But I think an underlying consistency is that we can carve out a space, not only for South Africa, but other countries in the global south, where the products and the things that we're doing are needed by the United States and by the global situation in terms of trade and economic development. And we concentrate on those, and we stick to our own principles. I think there's a fundamental reality here is that countries are now having the opportunity to make closer relationships with each other, not to so much rely on the United States. It's a reality. We have to deal with it. We have to deal with Trump, but not to treat Trump as some sort of, like rampaging gorilla who we've got to pay attention to every single time he throws a fit. I think basically what it is that we have to carve out those spaces not just with the United States, but with other countries in our own regions. And this is an opportunity to do so. That's where we should concentrate our energies.
And I mean, that was going to be my question in terms of how South Africa can best utilize this position, to start looking at its own solutions. But I just want to go back to what Minister Lamola said a few moments ago, saying that the visit by President Cyril Ramaphosa to the US is imminent. I mean, what are the potential diplomatic implications then, for the US and SA relations, especially considering, of course, all of this that is happening? I mean, the relationship being on a slippery slope. How possible is it that this, trip by the US president, by Cyril Ramaphosa to the US is imminent? I mean, it's actually very difficult to imagine that happening within the next few days.
Yeah, look, I mean, I don't know if it would happen in the next few days, but let's just say in the next few weeks, possibly, or the next 2 or 3 months. I think it's inevitable. And it's inevitable because, as I said, we can't ignore the U.S. It's there, it's reality, economically, politically. And if you look at what happened with the Trump-Zelensky relationship, you can see how this can play itself out. We had in one time when Zelensky went there and got a dressing down and was embarrassed in the White House and basically shouted at. And then 6 weeks to 2 months later, they signed a deal for critical minerals with Ukraine. So this is what I'm saying is that I think our president understands this, is there's a reality to geopolitics that transcends Trump, irrespective of what he says. That is where we need to concentrate on, which is those relationships are not going to be completely, cut off. They're going to be, he's trying to pressure, he's trying to show his power, he's trying to be a bully. And we have to deal with that, but you can sort of run around that in a way by concentrating on what the realities are. And in that case, it's the United States, irrespective of Donald Trump's nationalism, needs the rest of the world, and it needs trade, and it needs South African certain things that we have to offer. And I think in that case, when the trip happens, that's in the sense of what needs to be concentrated on. And it will be listened to because there are others in the Trump administration, irrespective of his antics, that understand that reality.
Absolutely. Dr. McKinley, thank you so much for unpacking that for us. And thank you so much for your time. Political analyst Dr. Dale McKinley there for us.